is that international relations theory as we know it now, I mean, realism, liberalism, I mean, having these terms to describe, what, how international relations works, is a very new field of study. I mean, it's like not even 100 years old that way. So this was just begun, sometime in the early 20th century, and just a lack of involvement, by women in, decision making. Unfortunately, because they didn't have. I mean, they got the right to vote in the 20s, right? In America, and just even getting women involved in politics in the first place has been strenuous. America is still kind of trying to incorporate its whole population into the political process. And if you don't even have people participating in the political process, how can you expect that? A problem with the discussions that we're having, or maybe the lack of discussion that women have among themselves concerning IR theory, is that you have to understand, at the very least, where, for example, realist theory is coming from. You have to understand what the basis of it is, even if you're going to reject it. I mean, a lot of liberalist theory is based on responding to what realists believe. And if you don't understand what realists believe, then you can't necessarily respond to it. So people who believe in realism, believe that it is an accurate representation of history and reality, and it's based on the balance of power. And if you don't understand what a balance of power means, or that the interrelation of states is based on power, then you're going to have a difficult time, proposing any alternative theories.
In my mind, an accurate description of the debate is not realism versus feminist theory.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a liberal versus realist theory. Like, to me, feminist theory is sort of overarching.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as constructivism isn't really like a third theory, it sort of takes upon all the
Mm-hmm.
different theories. In my mind, it would be too simplistic to say this is a realist theory and feminist theory opposes realist theory.
Right.
Because I view mine as as a feminist view of the world, just in general, but I'm not opposed.
But at the same time, when you think war, you're usually thinking of some guy like leading, an army into battle. You're not usually thinking of a woman. And what I'm trying to say is that maybe because, men are more willing to resort to that as a means of achieving their ends, then that is what has become history, and that is what has been studied, and that is what has prevailed as the way of doing things.
William's point, but I mean, if you think of kind of the three most prominent female stateswomen that I can think of, Indira Gandhi, Margaret Thatcher, and Golda Meir, all three of them were renowned for their kind of toughness and hawkishness.
But that's why I don't think those are female or male characteristics.
No. I'm not saying that they're specifically female or male. Just that I think William's point about that the people who decide to go into this field have to buy into that conception. Like you have to believe that to be an effective international statesperson, whether you are liberal or constructivist or whatever, you have to really kind of empathize and understand with the conception that force really matters.
At the same time, I mean, I think that is kind of and I do have realist, I do see the world in a realist way in some sorts, but I think that there's a lot of things that are important to the world today that I think realists kind of take out, all the nuances, all the, that I just think perspectives, like a feminist perspective, the fact that when you talk in realist terms, you're always excluding, you're really only talking about 10 countries, and you're excluding 2/3 of the world.
I'd love to hear what people think. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if there was a feminist realist and that first week, I think that would have been cool to see that perspective, and then at least you kind of have a little different ways of seeing, because even, that's this big thing that they're telling us through the paper, is that even within these schools, there's a lot of variety and stuff, and even there's a lot of African international theorists who are realists, but they're constructivist realists, which they have to be, because realist theory doesn't.
I mean, would there be any point in this? I don't think you're talking about feminist realist theory, when you're talking about bringing these people in. You're just talking about a woman who believes in realism.
But it's a feminist perspective on.
But
yeah.
I mean, would it make any difference?
It fills in gaps. It's. I mean, I think that a lot of us have realist tendency thoughts, or I don't know how to explain that, but you know what I mean. See things from to a certain extent in a realist perspective, but not fully. And I think that with feminist theory together and some elements of constructivism, is.
I mean,
more
the sadder part of this is that I wish more people in our class were having conversations like this, but I think probably given how busy people are and how you have to prioritize very quickly, that,
I agree.
the space isn't made to have this conversation, and the even greater tragedy is that people don't think about it.
Yeah, and you accept it as a status quo.
Yeah, without even really
Yeah,
acknowledging
thinking
what it is
about
you're
it.
doing, and
Yeah,
that's
agree.
even more problematic.
Yeah.
So just, I really appreciate the fact that our section leader always makes the point. Look, this is international relations as a concept evolved in the States and then was gradually accepted in Britain and has come
Right.
to be dominated entirely by kind of Western thinkers. It is only very, very recently that you start to see people like Mamdani, who are, from other